Well, our final speaker this evening is Adam Walker, MLA. Yeah, you can give him a hand, sure, why not? Adam is local from Parksville. He was elected as in the MLA for Parksville-Qualicum in 2020. Adam is a small business owner, former town councillor, and farmer. While a town councillor for Qualicum Beach from 2018 to 2000, he prioritized housing, enhancing public places, or spaces rather, and community engagement. He has owned and operated a tech business in the region for over 15 years. Adam has lived in Qualicum Beach area all his life and is proud to call the beautiful community home. He and his wife operate a small farm and are raising 2 daughters. Tonight, Adam will be speaking on Bill 44, 46, and 47. You may say, what is that? Well, he's about to tell you. These bills that have been quietly passed without not too many people realizing that. And Adam is here to tell us what these will mean to our communities. Adam, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I know there's a lot of questions that we want to get to, so I'll try to keep this short. I'm assuming that most people in this room know what Bill 44 is, but I'll run through it as quick as I can. The one parallel that I see with Bill 21, Bill 36, and Bill 44 is that we are going to see, likely, this government do the same thing they did with 36 and they did with 44, which is invoke closure. You know, Bill 44, we were halfway through debating this bill, and government said, we've heard enough. We want to make sure that we get on Helijet. We don't want to miss the ferry. We're going to cancel debate halfway through the bill. And that was the end of the democratic process that I was sent to do and others were sent to do. So let's take a step back, is that we are in a housing crisis. I think most people recognize that the price of housing is very much out of touch with reality for a lot of people in our community. As an MLA, I have so many seniors coming to my office that have been evicted, that have very little equity, and then find themselves in a situation where they're going to be living in their car. We get pool passes because that is how they're going to have a shower. We give them bus passes because they can't afford gas, like $2 a liter. If you're making $1,100 a year or a month on the government surplus subsidies, or GIS and all that, you can't get by on that. And so I think we need to recognize that we have a problem with housing. The province, we've seen hundreds of thousands of people move here in a very short period of time, and the government of British Columbia's solution was, we see a problem, we're going to do this solution, we're not going to listen to local government, but we're going to give them all this problem. So Bill 44 changes the way that zoning works in the province in basically everywhere. If you live in an urban area, you, at the end of June, will have your properties mandatorily rezoned. Councils can't vote against this. Now, there is a member of council here who did vote against some of this, and I won't say Cheryl's name, but there are 2 members of council that decided to speak their mind and say that, we're not going to put up with this. So what's happening is every single family lot in an urban area is now going to allow for 4 homes. And that is in Richmond, probably okay. They actually just went through this process. It took them 2 years to go through the planning process. They brought the community together. They said, we're in a housing crisis. We need to find a solution. And so they rezoned most of Richmond to allow for 6 homes on a single family lot. They did that as a community. But they found areas that it just never will make sense to put that kind of density. Infrastructure. We're not going to tear up perfectly good roads, perfectly good pipes to allow density in an area that just doesn't make economic sense. It's a no-brainer. They also recognize that they're on the hook for a large portion of the public transit costs. Well, why have sprawl with high density units all over the place if you're going to be stuck as a local government paying for the transit? It just didn't make sense for them. So they came up with a plan where they said, we got to come up with this many homes. We're going to, as a community, figure out where they're going to go. And it took them a couple years, and they did that. What the province did was, without talking to local councils is they have gone through the process where by June 30th, every local government has to pass bylaws that allow for these 4 homes on every single family lot. And as we were going through the debate, I went through some of the notes. Hansard, you can see what everybody said to the bill, and it's worthwhile looking at this up. I wanted to, this is important to me. I was on town council for a couple of years. If whoever's been involved in official community planning processes, thank you if you have been involved in it. It's so important. We come together as a community, we say, this is what we want to look like as a community 5, 10, 20 years from now. And what's now happening is councils are passing laws that basically say this is now going to be allowed everywhere. And there's going to be huge cost to that. And what I fundamentally don't understand is a lot of the impacts of this density. I was talking to Cheryl. The hospital. The Nanaimo Hospital was built in 1963, 61. When you go to that hospital, you see the brick building. That's the original hospital. There are days in that hospital where we have 100 patients more than there are beds in that hospital. So you can imagine you have a few patients in the hallway, that's a bad day. 100 patients in hallways and closets, that's a provincial responsibility. So the province is saying you need to build the housing, but we're not going to come and support you when it comes to healthcare. You need to build the housing, but we're not going to help you when it comes to schools. And the impact on local governments is it's going to raise your taxes. It's going to lead to uncertainty in communities. But the irony of this is it's actually leading to less homes getting built. We have planning departments now that are absolutely scrambling, that are turning down high-density projects in our downtowns because they have to go through this planning process. There are some good parts to this. I'm not going to say the whole thing's bad. There's a requirement now that there's a housing needs assessment, that you have to actually, as a community, say, how many homes are you going to need in 20 years from now, and you got to plan for that, because some communities have not done that. There's a requirement now that you got to go through your official community plan every 5 years. That's a useful thing. But if there's one thing I've learned in government, and I've only been at this for, I guess, 5 years now, is you do the work together. You listen to people in your community. I'm looking out and I see all of you here. You're engaged, you're passionate, you're smart. You want to be a part of a process, and you deserve a government that listens to you, that responds to those urgent needs, whether it's healthcare or housing or dealing with the opiate crisis, but they don't do that work unilaterally. Bill 46 and 47, we've got a transit-oriented, I don't remember the names of the whole thing, but yeah. The idea is if you live near a bus route, like a really high, like a node, there's 3 of them in Nanaimo. Technically there should be 4, but the province hasn't funded the core downtown. It will, instead of 4 units per lot, you're going to see 6 in some areas, and you're going to see a lot more than that. And so these are multi-story buildings. And the impact by not planning with the community is Woodgrove Mall is one of these transit hubs. And so you've got some land in Lanceville, rural land, no services, it doesn't connect to the highway really well, and now you're allowed 4-story buildings there. That is not good urban planning. And that would not happen if this work happened collectively. The other bill that hasn't really been discussed is the new one for amenity cost charges. And when you are a developer and you want to build an apartment building, local government comes up with DCCs. You can't profit off of those. You're supposed to charge for the basic necessities. You're running pipes to the home. You're running pipes away from the home. That's what a DCC is supposed to charge or supposed to cover. This new bill will allow for local governments to charge developers for things like childcare, for things like fire hall, for things like community parks. These are all important things. But when your goal as government is to make housing more affordable, and you're taxing the heck out of developers, the idea that a developer is a villain in this whole scheme is completely false. These are the people who are building the homes that we need to live in. And you want to know the honest truth, you add a tax to a developer, they're passing that on 100%, usually 110%, to the person who's buying the home. So I'm really happy that you are all here. This bill passed last fall. It's coming into force, a portion of it at the end of June here. And it feels like nobody knew it was coming. It feels like people still don't know what's coming. In the district of Lanceville, they've basically said, we're not doing it. The town of Qualicum, where I live, they are run off their feet trying to figure out the planning process. And I think still at this point, people don't know what's happening. So it's people like you that are taking the time missing a hockey game. I know some of you are checking the score. I'm not going to say what it is. But taking the time out of your busy schedules to learn more about this and get engaged. And I got to tell you, when those postcards that you have there, when they come to the MLA's office, I don't know how, I'm not going to say anything bad about Sheila. I don't know how she runs her office. But but when I get those postcards, I take every single one of them, I put them in a spreadsheet, and I draft a letter, and I send a letter back to everyone who's done that. It is so important. It is so important that people get engaged in the process, and it is so important that your elected officials reciprocate that. It's a relationship. We are here as elected officials to serve our communities. We're not here to serve political parties. We're not here to serve ourselves. We're here to serve every one of you. So when you send a letter or an email, or you stop a politician in the street, it's not that you should have to expect a reply. You deserve a reply. And just remember that. When you send those emails in, if you don't get a reply within a couple weeks, send another one. Be polite, but it is your right, and you deserve to have a response from your elected official. And I hope that you've all learned through this. So that's all I have. I want to hear the questions. So I'm gonna pass the mic back, and hopefully we've saved a few minutes here so some of these questions can be answered. And I hope I've sort of touched on what Bill 44, 46, and 47 are. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much, Michael. Most of us have no clue what that was all about until now, and now realize the importance of standing up and attending council meetings, asking questions, and being part of our local government so that they can call to account the provincial government itself. So we're coming around with the cards for questions. We're going to come up here. Pastor Robert